Especially since I've just been a roadie for my sister for so long now, and she's relaxing down in Mexico now, so said go for it, you know, give it a try. So I want to thank you for coming to this work in progress, by which I mean both this show and this human project, by which I mean, you know, all of us, everywhere. Everywhere. Work in progress. It all begins with a dream. You are in a chamber of some sort, very large, very, very, very far underground. So deep underground that barely anything moves. It's so quiet that barely even a molecule moves. It's just quiet, silent, peaceful, deep. And in this dream, you're standing in this chamber in front of a huge circular window. It's an aquarium window. And behind the glass is a gigantic white fish. And it's just so calmly floating in this dark blue water, and its fins are just kind of softly moving like silk threads in the water. And its big eyes are looking at you, back at you through the window. And you suddenly know, somehow, you intuit or you're informed, that this fish is carrying all the sorrows and sufferings and troubles of the world. All of them. I was going to say on his shoulders, but of course it can't. It doesn't have those. But it manages. And you, in this dream, you're looking at this fish and you feel sorry for it. Like this poor fish has to carry all that. And you feel, I was going to say a little bit guilty, but it's not really guilty. You feel responsible. Because you know that you've been part of the problem, that at points in your life you have added to the burden of this large white fish. And what makes it much, much worse is that suddenly the fish tells you, in whatever way it's communicating with you, that it's okay. You don't need to worry about it. It's all right. It can take care of it. And that makes you feel immediately much, much worse. Nobody knows whether it's intended to or not, but it does. Now in this dream, as often happens in a dream, you suddenly shift space. Now you're in that same deep, deep, deep underground chamber, but you're standing in front of an old-fashioned conveyor belt. And on the conveyor belt are wooden boxes, a little bit smaller than the banker's box, open top. One light hangs from the ceiling. You can't even see the ceiling. Just this wire comes out of the darkness above and hangs an old-fashioned green lampshade above the conveyor belt. And the conveyor belt moves the box under the light, and it stops for a few seconds, and then it moves on to the next box. And in this dream, you're looking into these boxes as they go by, like there's a chicken. It's a grapefruit going by, and you're just like, wow, this is pretty amazing, right? And then, it's only started the show, because the next box that comes by is, I know this is hard to believe, but the entire contents of the Museum of Natural History, down to the nanoparticle, are in that box. Another box goes by with a complete Gilbert and Sullivan musical in it. And you're thinking, in the dream, how do they do it? This is pretty amazing. And then another box comes by, and you look a little bit more closely into this box. And there's a guy. There's a guy standing on his front porch. It's not really a front porch. I mean, it's a glorified front porch. What it really is a small concrete pad that's attached to the front of his house. But he's very proud of it. He just bought it last week. This is the first weekend that he spent in his new house. And he's out on his front porch on a Sunday morning. He's just, enjoying it. His green, lush lawn. The blue spruce, the perfectly conical blue spruce tree that's out by the right fence, out by the road next to the walkway. And the guy's just feeling good about his life, about his accomplishments. He bought this house. He's got a good job down at the 4-story building with all the black glass on the outside. He's a cost accountant or advertising. I'm not sure what he does. I'm not sure if he even knows, but it works. It works. He's got 2 daughters. They're 8 and 5, and he's a wife. And the thing about Sunday morning for this guy is that it's a really special time for him because the girls, as he likes to call his daughters and his wife, like to sleep in on Sunday morning. So he gets time by himself. Special me time for him and the Sunday New York Times. So he's made a pot of coffee. That's the first part of the ritual. Makes a pot of coffee. You know, U-Ban and a Mr. Coffee. This is some time ago. And he's taking his mug of coffee, his Car Talk mug, out to the front door. And this is where we began the story. He's standing on his front porch, admiring the view, the lush green grass. And he looks down at his Sunday New York Times, and there's some headline about Sputnik. Russia launches Sputnik. And he's gone, wait, what? That can't be. But next to the paper, his attention shifts to what is on his porch next to the paper, which is a very large snail. And he's like, you know, he's got this territoriality now because he bought the house, right? It's his porch. And the snail is on his porch. So without thinking about it very much, he picks up the snail and he just snaps it right out to the yard, almost all the way out to the fence. Forgets about it immediately. Picks up the paper, walks into the house, drinks some coffee, reads the paper. Time passes. Hours, days, weeks, months, and years. Now he's moved up in the company. Although, you know, the prospects, business-wise, are still good, but whatever he thought might be coming out of it, I mean, glamour is not the right word, but some kind of substance that he thought he might get out of his job isn't showing up. And his daughters, I mean, they're in junior high and high school now. And he jokes with his friends that his daughter's hating. But it's not really, you know, fully a joke. And he's not really sure what to do about it. It's like, you know, he could ask maybe. He's just flummoxed. Like it's just an impenetrable situation. They just don't seem to like him. We're not connected, but I don't know what to do about it. I don't know who to ask. He can't ask his wife, obviously. She's getting a license in real estate. Which he feels good about. You know, it's like, yeah, she's a smart, powerful woman, she'll do well with that. But somehow he feels like, and he's inadequate for some reason because this is happening. And so the whole thing is like the shine is off a little bit. But he's still got Sunday morning, right? So he comes down the stairs in his brand new terry cloth bathrobe. And it's a birthday present, right? So, you know, terry cloth bathrobe for a birthday present, you know. Speaks volumes. So the girls are asleep, and he makes a pot of coffee, goes out to the front door with his mug, opens the door. It's a beautiful spring morning. Looks down. There's a paper. It's like Hindenburg explodes in New Jersey. He's like, what? That doesn't make any sense. But immediately he sees a big snail on his front porch next to the paper. And now it's a little bit more personal. Now it's not just like this invertebrate is on my territory and I'm going to get rid of it. But it's personal, and he's like angry at the snail, just a little bit. He picks up the snail and he throws it. And he has one little flash of self-awareness, just a brief flash of self-awareness, that the snail, you know, really didn't do any harm. You know, it's like trespassing. It's a misdemeanor. But he realizes that he's actually taking out his frustrations and his upsets and his unhappiness on this poor snail. Because he can't take it out on anybody else without repercussions, right? But he can throw this snail out in the front yard, you know. Nobody cares. He forgets about it almost immediately. Takes the paper and the coffee, goes inside. I don't really know how to play this, but it makes me feel really comfortable. There's a few notes on here, I know. That was all right. That was okay, too. He walks inside, he reads the paper, drinks the coffee, time passes. You know, that's why they call it time, right? Makes sense. Months, weeks, years pass by. The girls are both in college, and they do really hate him. He got a definitive answer on that. The wife hasn't quite moved out yet, but it's almost there. You know, it's just like the passion for leaving isn't there either. It's just like so flat. And the job, you know, in a word, he's still there, but it just sucks. The job sucks. It pays, and it's not that hard, so he's not that motivated to try to get anything else going. So, you know, there he is. But he's still got Sunday morning in the New York Times. And he comes down in his coffee-stained terry cloth robe and the broken reading glasses in one of the pockets, and he comes downstairs and makes a pot of coffee, much better coffee and a nicer coffee maker. Goes to the front door. New York Times, unorthodox assassinated or something. You know, shit happens, right? That's what he says. Snail on his front porch. And now he's just enraged. Enraged. He throws the snail as far as he can. And he throws his shoulder at him. He goes, "Oh, God, that hurts. Fuck you." Blames it all. It's like the snail's fault, right? Of course, he has just a minor burst of self-awareness where he knows that's really not fair to the snail, but, like, who cares? Goes inside, drinks some coffee, reads a paper, right? Time passes, a lot of it. And now he's alone in the house, the wife is gone, the girls are gone, everybody's gone, he got fired or he quit, nobody knows, who cares, right? He's doing some consulting, which means he's selling his stuff out of the garage on eBay. Still has a, but still Sunday, he doesn't need the solitude anymore, that's for sure, but still Sunday morning he has that, it's kind of an abreaction to a past, period of time where things didn't quite suck so bad. And so he's going down the stairs and he makes a pot of coffee. For him, the high point of his day is those first 2 or 3 sips of coffee. It's downhill from there. Those first 2 or 3 sips are really good, and he's looking forward to it. In fact, he started looking forward to it the night before. Makes a pot of coffee, takes his mug, and takes it out to the front, and the door creaks because the house, needs a lot of maintenance and stuff, entropy. And he looks down to the paper and what does he see? A snail, right? He sees a big snail. But this guy, he's really reached the end of his rope, so, he's not going to throw the snail. He just kind of he breaks down right there, basically. He looks at the snail, and the snail looks at him. It's like this acknowledgement. They each exist. And the snail, they don't have arms and hands, so they can't gesture the same way we do. But they've got their eyes on these prehensile stalks. And so they got this really expressive gestural language because they can roll their eyes at the same time they do some kind of gesture that we would do with our arms. And so this snail does this gesture to the guy that all wrapped into one gesture says "What is it with you? And you poor sap, your life is really terrible. Plus, is there some way I can help?" The snail communicates, all in just one expressive gesture. And the guy bursts into tears. The first time anybody's really confronted him with his situation. The dam was broken, the tears are just gushing out like in a cartoon, right? They're splashing all over the concrete here on the snail, and he's just crying and crying and crying. The snail's like, "Okay, I'm waiting." He says, "Okay, Brad." The guy goes, "My name's not Brad." He goes, "It doesn't matter, Brad." Or Greg, whatever it is, just, those are healing tears, and those are really important. You need to do that. I can tell this is the first time you really come face to face with what a shit show your life actually is. Right? You need to do this. These are healing tears. So, but there's a limit. Right? So, save some up for tomorrow. But I want you to sit down, Alan. And he goes, "My name's not Alan." "I don't care what your name is. Just sit down. Breathe. Breathe. Take a deep, slow breath. Now drink some of that good coffee. Drink the coffee. And just don't think about anything. Just the taste of the coffee. Is it good? Yeah. All right. Just breathe. You're hitting bottom, Steve." The guy's giving up, right? You hit bottom, and that is a good thing. It's a good thing you've hit bottom. I know it doesn't feel nice. It's good. Now, have you ever heard of Stoicism? Or Sufism? Or Zen Buddhism? Or any kind of self-help therapy at all? Is that any of that ring a bell for you? I don't know. Well, a wonder. But what I want you to do is go to a library, used bookstore, something like that, and just go to the self-help section or the religion, spiritual section. Get something. Start somewhere. It's mostly about your intent, not to accept this thing you've got now. You can do better. Just don't get the Jordan Peterson stuff. Stay away from that. Now he says to John, you shouldn't feel bad. And then he regrets saying that because you actually should feel bad for as bad as you like yours. But you shouldn't feel all alone in this. Because you're not the only one whose life is collapsing. It's not just other people's lives who are collapsing all around us. It's the whole thing. All the institutions that we rely upon, you humans rely upon at least, are collapsing. The churches, the governments, the military, Wall Street, it's a predatory swamp now. The teachers, the gurus, the priests, the politicians, the businessmen. It's all Shark City out there. It's all falling apart. Even the jet stream is falling apart. Weird weather everywhere. So don't feel so alone. Even the empire, the American empire, is busy unwinding right now, isn't it? So the American empire, I'm a child in the empire. Most of you probably are. I would consider child of the empire, the American empire. Started in 1945, so I was born in 1953, just a few years after the official start of what we call the American empire. Started then. 1969, I think, was its peak when the United States went to the moon. Something it couldn't do now at all. Couldn't even come close to doing it now, replicating that. Something happened 50 years ago. Couldn't do it now. That was the high point. So now we're busy doing what all empires do eventually, which is overextending themselves militarily, hollowing out the home country, building up the debt for an inevitable crash. I mean, it's not like we're to blame, it's just what happens. It's the script, it's the playbook. It is written. That empires come apart. We don't really need to identify it with it. It's just, it's what happens. But it is interesting that it's happening so much faster. I mean, the Roman Empire probably took hundreds of years to fall apart. But the whole beginning, flowering, peaking, ending of an empire probably happens in this, span of one lifetime, like mine. 53 to whenever, however long, much longer I go. Which is interesting, that it hadn't moved so fast. But I can tell you that being a child of the empire was really, really great. At least if you were white, middle class in Indiana. I mean, it was really good. I mean, it was totally free. I mean, I was the youngest in the family, fourth kid. And by that time, my parents had figured out that these small, strange creatures could pretty much live on their own. And they just, let me be. I don't think I ever got any instruction in anything at all. There are only two rules: get good grades and be home for dinner or call. Like 2A, 2B. Call, be home for dinner or call. Get good grades. Otherwise, nobody cared what I did at all. I could do anything I wanted. Ride my bike for miles and miles and miles with my little dog trotting by my side. It was really, really great. That kind of freedom, the freedom to be bored. I'm sorry, you kids, you're never going to experience that. The freedom of just doing nothing all day long. Wonderful. Really great. And the summers, like the fireflies coming out, we played badminton until dark. We'd have corn and tomatoes for dinner. Typical Indiana dinner in the late summer. And I grew them in the backyard. Future farmers of America for 1 year. I know that is hard to believe, isn't it? All true, folks, all true. So it was easy. I made enough money delivering eggs and newspapers on my bicycle to buy a car before I even had a license. So having a driver's license back then was the thing. So on my 16th birthday, I came home with a driver's license. I already had a car ready to go. 63 Ranchero Ford. I think it's a fortune now. And I put my lawnmowers in the back, and I'm going around mowing lawns. I made enough money to buy motorcycles to go to Europe. And I'm not trying to tell you that I'm some kind of super entrepreneurial asshole. No, the point is that it was just so easy. It didn't take much work at all. Now, again, sorry kids. I got my helper over here. So this human project, what is it, right? What's a story? It's got to be a story, right? Otherwise we're just talking about particles bouncing around in outer space. But what is the story of people? We've all got our individual stories, our family stories, our tribal stories, the story of Nevada City that we tell each other, it tells itself, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But as human beings, do we have a story? Well, if there is one, it's kind of vague, I think. It's like, progress, more, of everything, all the time. More people, more technology, more data, big fucking data, really huge data. You know, and that's it. You know, it's not really thought through very much. Like, what's the end point? No, like Elon Musk and Hawking, those guys have brought up like the possibility of endpoints. Like, okay, AI might wipe us out, so we better start a colony on Mars. Well, that, you know, I mean, you know, they can't even get the Tesla number 3 right. So my hopes are not high for that. Who cares anyway, right? So, Human Project, the story. We need, I think, to call on some professional help at this point. To tighten up our literary efforts in terms of what the story is for we humans is. So I would like to call upon Blake Snyder. He can't join us here on stage because he died a few years ago, but he wrote this incredible book called Save the Cat. And it's a manual about how to write movie scripts, about, you know, really formulaic, cookie-cutter Disney movie scripts. And even if you don't want to write that kind of thing, it's a great book for some interesting and really informative takes on what a story is and how it works. He says there's 10 different story lines. Your story must fit into one of those, or it isn't a story. Forget about it. It's like, you know, The Golden Fleece, Buddy Love, Monster in a Box, Guy with a Problem. All the kinds of stories that we can have. But no matter what kind of story you have, he says the structure is exactly the same. And this guy has it nailed down to the page. Your script is 110 pages long. On page 11, we have an episode where the main character needs to be shown as a good person, a good guy. That's the Save the Cat moment. That's the title of the book. That's when you write the scene in on page 11. Cat gets stuck in a tree. Your good guy goes up and saves the cat. Everybody thinks he's a good guy. Then they can identify with that character. Right? It works. Really, it does work. And then there's a midpoint at page 555 and stuff. And there's more into those details we'll get into later. But it's all there. It's all there. So we could perhaps use, I mean, we're going to write a movie, right? If we're going to tell any kind of story about humans, it's got to be a movie, because that's the way we work, right? Unless it's going to be a series on HBO or something. Because you get more development time for characters. I don't know. We'll think about that. So what, you know, if you were at Park City, Utah, you know, for the Sundance Film Festival, and you know, the thing there is like, you got to sell your movie. You got 30 seconds to sell your movie. What's your pitch? What's your elevator pitch? What's your deck? Your stack. So you're in an elevator in Park City, and there's a couple of aliens come into that from another galaxy to see what the movies are that they might buy. And they lean over and you ask, so what's your human beings? What's your pitch? What's your story? You know, 30 seconds. You know, I mean, what's your raison d'etre? You know, speak French very well. I mean, you got a reason to live? I mean, what are you people for? The alien asks you. What are you people for? Do you have an answer? Now, we're going to go back in time for a little help from some of our forebears in the Mayan community down there in Mexico, Guatemala, Belize. They had an interesting cosmology. Besides this beautiful art, which is what really attracted me to them in the first, they have a cosmology that says the Mother Fathers, the creators, wants to make a world where the creatures in it knew how to worship. That was their goal. And what I think is so marvelous is that they just couldn't get it right. They tried over and over and over. We'll build a world, now it doesn't work. Start over, back to the drawing board. We'll make our creatures out of mud, now it doesn't work so good. Then make our creatures out of wood, now that doesn't work so good. You know, everybody dies, horrible. Start over. And I just love that. I love the idea that the creators are incompetent. Or at least, you know, that's a little too strong. At least they don't really quite know what they're doing. And so it's a learning experience. We got to try, you know, like set the initial conditions, press start button, and see what happens. What are these humans going to do this time? I love that idea. But what is more interesting to me, or at least as interesting, is that word that they leave hanging out there, which is worship. What do they mean by that? Obviously, to me at least, they didn't mean, you know, sitting in an uncomfortable pew with a little pillbox hat and singing terrible songs. What could they have meant? worship. You know, they just left that hanging, and maybe they didn't even know. Maybe they didn't really know what they wanted these creatures to do. They just said, you know, we want something really cool. What it is, we'll know when we see it. But as far as, you know, we can go other places for answers to this question, whether we will be satisfied with them or not, I'm not sure. But like the animal kingdom has a great story about worshiping, and it has to do with nematodes, tiny little worms, and sheep, and snails, not different snail altogether. They never met, they don't know each other, and ants. Now the nematode was, because it's a circle, so you don't remember where to start. So the sheep's out in the field, eating grass, happy, right? Pooping. The snail going through the field, doing his business, comes across some sheep poop. I don't even want to talk about it, but something, you know, the snail picks up the nematode larvae in the sheep poop. Snail goes about, does his business, leaves the slime trail, right? Everybody complains about it. The ants are out there in the field doing their work, right? Those guys are hard workers. They actually like sing union songs when they're working, you know, always look for the union label. Those guys are hard workers, they work together. Work songs. Now they come across the slime trail and they go, ew, you know, but it's like miles to get around it, so they cross it. And there they pick up the nematode larvae, right? That's when the nematode go into evil action. Nematode goes to the ant's brain and compels it, takes over the ant's brain, compels the ant to climb a stalk of grass and grasp it and stay there until a sheep comes along and eats it, right? That's what it's meant to do, is make it much more likely for the ant to be eaten by sheep, so to keep the lovely, beautiful cycle of nature going. Now that's interesting. I love parasitology. It's a bizarre branch of biology that's like, what? You're kidding, you know, they do that. But what's more interesting, and you know, you've seen these like Planet 2, the David Attenborough movies, and like all the incredible photography they can do with animals. Well, they do it on a smaller scale too. So they've got these, it's, you know, those little boxes that a ring comes in and like you open the lid, you know. They've got something about that size, and it's got a complete recording studio, little teeny little tripods and cameras and microphones, a little mixing board, and everything. It's like all for tiny documentary work. And they've got a setup down there with the ants. They don't know what, you know, they just set that stuff up, they let it run, see what's going to happen. So what this thing catches is like mind-blowing. They see the ants like on a beautiful Sunday morning. The ants start climbing the stalks of grass and grasping and holding tight up at the top of the stalk of grass, and the other ants are singing hymns to the glory of the ants, sacrificing themselves to the sheep gods. So that's one answer to what worship is. I'm sure that'd actually be really popular, but or something along those lines, analogous. You know, nice note there. But Sun Ra, I prefer Sun Ra. Great musician, band leader, a composer from the 1930s on until he died just a few years ago. Fantastic guy. And his idea about worship or prayer, same thing in his mind, was a prayer wasn't like asking for a favor from God. You know, I need give me that lottery ticket or something. Prayer was, and worship was a giving to the Creator. And to Sun Ra, that was creativity. Like for him, it was music. Make this joyful noise was what he called it. And we send that to the Creator. And it's like, okay, that's cool. I would think that would be pretty satisfying for a creator. I mean, you know, I don't know. I mean, if you were the creator, I would create it. If you know, it's like, would you want creatures that were just like, oh, you are so large and wonderful, you know, please don't hurt me. You're really terrific and huge. No, you want that'd be embarrassing. I'd wipe the map, start over. You want creatures that are complex and surprising. Do things that, you know, never expected to see. And they're doing it. Fantastic, right? Now, a long time has passed in this story and in real life from those easy days of my youth in Indiana. Now, I've never been able to stand classrooms. I've never got through high school, like a year at college, but it was just torture. So I took a correspondence course from International Correspondence Courses in civil engineering. I actually found her on a matchbook. And so on the basis of what I learned there, I went to Alaska and got a job for an engineering firm, surveying an engineering firm. And I learned to draft, and it was cool back then in Alaska because you didn't need credentials. You could do whatever you wanted if you could do it. And so I ended up designing subdivisions and water systems, even a golf course. And it was really interesting. And but I got tired of it because one day I had to, I did a lot of design work. I'd draw these lines on paper and then send the guys out in the field and they have to cut down all the trees where that line was. And one day I had to do that job. And I had drawn this line on a piece of paper and I'm out in the field with my Carhartts on and my machete and my chainsaw. I'm so super manly, I'm really feeling cool about it. And I'm out there and the surveyor is telling me, this line right and left, and I've got to cut down all the trees that are on that line that I drew on a piece of paper miles away. And I come to this magnificent birch tree, the biggest one I ever saw in Alaska, on the line that I drew on a piece of paper miles away, and I got to cut it down. And it just was like, that was like my first eye-opening thing on something's wrong here. We got everything backwards here somehow. So I quit that job for a few years, and I ended up, waiting tables and dismantling buildings on Elmendorf Air Force Base. Interesting things. And the woman I met up there got entangled with, well, she was already entangled, and there was some oil company workers and guns and all kinds of trouble, but nobody got killed, thank goodness, really. And she had a boy. I was there when he was born, and I helped raise him, and a year later we went to New Mexico to her parents' ranch. And I built a house for her there, and it was, it was okay, but I get itchy feet, and I just can't stay anywhere very long, and it was just driving me crazy, and I had to go, and I begged her to go to California. It's like, come on, get in the car, let's go, the three of us to California, we'll, do something, but she wouldn't go, she wouldn't leave her family, and so I left by myself in our little Fiat 128, and I drove as far west as I could, and down San Diego, and I stopped there, and I was not in a good way. I got a job in a Denny's restaurant, cooking, I had a lot of experience doing that. And I needed a place to rent. So, the cheapest place I could find was the El Portal Motel, El Cajon Boulevard in San Diego. And this place is, just imagine the worst place you can. This is like 10 times worse. It was bad. I did some jaywalking there. I was, from a wild man from the country. I didn't realize you're not supposed to, just run across the street. So police stops, gives me a ticket. He's writing the ticket, and I only have my New Mexico license on. So he goes, where do you live? And I gave him the address for the El Portal. And he's writing it down, and he stops, and he goes, wait. That's the El Portal, isn't it? You live there? Shootings, knives, fights, screams, everything was just horrible. Cockroaches and cigarette burns. There's a dead fly behind the screen of the TV. Bad. And I couldn't even afford it. The only thing I had of any monetary value was my prized possession, which was my Olivetti electric typewriter. It's like a beautiful, beautiful Italian industrial thing with a little, it's like an IBM selector, but beautiful, and a little golf ball. And it made the most beautiful writing noise I've ever heard. And I took it to the pawn shop. I needed $50. And I put it on the counter, and the guy goes, I'll give you 20. I burst into tears. I started sobbing. I couldn't help it. It's like, what am I going to do? And the guy either intuited that, okay, this guy's going to be back for his typewriter no matter what, or he just was embarrassed and wanted me to leave. So I said, he gave me the $50, and I paid the rent, and I got to stay there. And it was bad. It was bad. Outside the back window, there's an alley, and then on the other side of that was a house. An old guy lived in this house. And he'd open his back door, all through the day, and yell for his dog. Apparently his dog would just go running, and he'd want his dog to come back. And he'd go out there and shout his dog's name over and over and over. And the name of his dog was Troubles. Troubles. I work a night shift. I'm trying to get sleep in the afternoon. Troubles. Troubles. I'm watching TV late at night there, and it's Desperate Hours, an old movie with Humphrey Bogart, Frederick March. Humphrey Bogart's an ex-con. He's escaped from prison. He's in a jam with his two buddies. They've done a house invasion. Frederick March's house, a suburban house on the north side of Indianapolis, where I grew up. It's too spooky. Where am I? Then there's a commercial, a car commercial. The guy comes on, he goes, nobody will sell you a new or used Buick for less money than I will. Nobody. I grew up with that guy on TV selling Buicks in Indianapolis. I'm going, where am I? Where am I? Well, submitted for your approval. El Portal, a portal to where? Well, it's the underworld. That's right. Portal to the underworld. And we're just starting. This is, I'm not sure which page we're on. Probably about 48. We need some script analysis here. This is a work in progress. Where are we going? I go to work. I get a phone call. My friend Jill has been killed, shooting accident. Somebody's kitchen cleaning a rifle. Boy was there. I couldn't handle it. I broke down. I couldn't go back for a funeral. I couldn't go back to take care of him. Nothing. I never felt so useless in my whole life. It was not a good time. I'm in the kitchen, lunch rush at a Denny's. I got my cook's knife in my hand, and the manager's this punk. You know, he never cooked, he doesn't know anything, and he's coming in to questioning me about some shit. And it's like 10 minutes before noon, I got a lunch rush coming, and he's pestering me, and I'm so, you know, I'm near my edge. And I turn to him with a big knife in my hand, and I say, get out of my kitchen. Yeah, not a good time. The underworld. I think I'm the editor, I'm going to intervene here. And say, actually I do know where we are. It's about page 55. That's the midpoint in the story. It's Break into Two, it's called, by Blake Snyder. Now the next 20 pages, 55 to 75. This is what Blake Snyder calls bad guys closing in. This is the part of the story where the shit starts to happen. People start getting hurt. Stuff goes wrong. This is into the underworld. And those Mayans, back up a little bit, those Mayans, they had a Xibalba. Their underworld was called Xibalba. Then the middle world's where the humans are, and then there's the heavenly realm. I don't know what they call that. You know, nothing ever happens up there, right? A few people work up there. A few shaman types work up there, like Frank Lloyd Wright, Mozart, Marilyn Monroe. Seriously, yeah. Not many people work up there, but they work in the underworld because that's where things happen. That's where obstacles are confronted. Where things that we don't think that we can confront and get through, we are confronted with them, and we must get through. You know, the thing about the underworld is we're talking about the oldest story in the world. This is the shaman's journey. This is where the shaman works. The underworld. Now, I'm going to call on the stage another expert witness by the name of Dr. Johann Faustus, also known as Faust, the original mark for the worst deal in history, the Faustian bargain. This is where he sold his soul for 27 years of vast powers and infinite knowledge, right? Terrible deal, right? Whenever I say that, it rings a bell for me, right? That deal. And it's actually ringing my iPhone. My iPhone, it's like I asked Siri, is there something I could exchange for having a tiny little super powerful phone that could answer any of my questions at any time of the day or night? Like my soul? I mean, food for thought, right? Who knows? Something to think about. Yeah, the Faust, the bargain. The thing is that that is one of the most popular stories, and it's the first bestseller on print. It's been written so many times in so many forms. It's really one of the most popular stories in human history. Yes, interesting. The thing is, another researcher says that story is a Christian church propagandistic rewriting of an older, much older shaman story, where the shaman goes to the underworld, makes a deal with the lords of the underworld. But it's not selling his soul, he's actually looking for souls that are damaged or lost or bruised, stolen, or if somebody lost their caribou and they need to find out where it is. All kinds of business happens in the underworld. Technology, science, information, it's all down there. I know that's crazy to believe, but that's, look it up, right? Ask Siri. So, what the church wanted to do was change that story so that the underworld is a place where you don't want to go. It's hell. And they put a chain link fence and barbed wire over the entrance. They say, no admittance. They want people messing around down there. And so they crafted this tale about, you sell your soul to the devil in exchange for something. And they twisted the original story to meet their needs. The original story is about shaman going to the underworld and healing. It's what it's all about. Soul loss. For whatever reason. Something many of us suffer from. I mean, our story, could be like Moby Dick. Captain Ahab is running our world, and he's mad. He's insane. All he wants to do is kill Mother Nature in the form of a white whale. It's this mysterious power that he can't understand, doesn't understand, and so it insults him, and he must be killed. I mean, that's too close to comfort to me. Anyway, food for thought. Back to the El Portal. Things are winding up, or winding down. Things are getting rough. Night has begun. Screams are outside. A little bit of light screaming out in the parking lot. You see the blue light flashes, through your curtains on the wall. Some squealing tire, some angry man leaving his wife or girlfriend, shouts and fights, breaking glass. 10:35, shots fired, requesting backup. And I turn on the TV, we turn on the TV, and hope that no one knocks on that door. And the TV that I watched as a child starts to repeat. Bonanza, Jackie Gleason, Ed Sullivan, A Millionaire, Combat, The Rifleman, Perry Mason. But it's a little bit twisted now. Where's this going? Perry Mason is in a Tokyo courtroom on a hot summer day. A fan spinning slowly in the hot Tokyo air. Godzilla is his client. Godzilla's been arrested for destroying Tokyo with his tail and stuff. Angry lizard. Mitigating circumstances never taken into account. So Perry Mason doesn't speak a word of Japanese, nobody else speaks English, and he's up there shouting, Your Honor, relevance. And the judge is just like, Kore wa nani o? And Godzilla's, slumping back in his chair, looking at Perry Mason going, maybe I made a mistake with this guy. I mean, he's got a great rep, right? But what is his strategy here? I don't get it. But anyway, Perry Mason wins because he always wins. He never loses a case. Somehow, Godzilla gets off. The Japanese detective in charge of the case goes home and kills himself. What kind of ending is that? In Bonanza, all the Bonanza brothers are in town, Virginia City. They're getting drunk and snorting meth, getting tattoos. Lauren Green is back at the Bonanza, pissed as hell, but a range fire starts, burn the whole thing down. What kind of ending is that? We seem to be on a roller coaster somehow. It's a roller coaster. Clanking up a long, long, long hill. Clank, clank, and it's really wobbly. The whole thing is held together by a white paint, you think. It's really clank, clank. This is probably the last time this roller coaster is ever going to run. Clank, clank, up the hill. And there's a guy sitting right in front of you. He's got a purple suit on and a purple top hat. It's Willy Wonka. He turns around and he says, Are you ready to be delivered? Willy Wonka is a great shaman too, as a matter of fact. Different kind of tale. So Willy Wonka is the great chocolate magician, shaman of chocolate. And he's looking for his replacement. This is an ancient story. Ancient story. And so all these applicants, these children are tested, and they fail because of their selfishness and their cruelty and their stupidity. Those are removed. Charlie has a pure heart, and he makes it through. He becomes the new shaman. Willy Wonka goes off somewhere else. Now he's in our roller coaster. Sitting next to him is Stephen King. He's got clown makeup on. Doesn't say a word. Perry Mason, dark and handsome man, sits next to you on the roller coaster. He leans over and he goes, "My dear, I, like Walt Whitman, am a size queen. Did you know that?" It's getting strange. Getting strange. Nobody will sell you a new Buick for less money than I will. Now, on the TV, you go back to the TV, and what's on it? But it's you turn it on, and it's like you're in the middle of a Bruce Willis movie. And it's like that point in the movie where, it's just like the maximum thing. His troublesome teenage daughter has called him on his cell phone and she's in trouble. His ex-wife's causing a lot of bullshit. And there's terrorists that are going to destroy the big city town, it's like, and he's in the middle of it, and he's pulling his hair out, and he's got sweat in his face, he doesn't know what to do. But, you've seen that before, so you change the channel. It's another Bruce Willis movie. There's an asteroid coming down, he's going to save us from the asteroid or something like that. Like, I can't tell you, you turn the channel, it's another Bruce Willis movie. It's Armageddon, or it's Last Man Standing, or it's Die Hard, or Die Really Hard, or Die Fukushima, or Die Climate Change, or Please, Will You Please Die? On and on and on. Every Bruce Willis movie ever made, plus some that weren't. And you just can't seem to get rid of it. The thing is, they're all in the same place. They're all on page 73. Converging like 18 gigantic freight trains toward page 75. Page 75 is known as All Is Lost. All is lost. We feel that there's no hope. How can our hero win under these circumstances? We're out of ammunition and the Terminator has just gotten up and he's walking toward us again. The water is rising. The fire won't stop. Whatever it is, all is lost. Page 75. Nobody ever wants to go there. And as anybody in a business knows that that's not the end of it. Page 76 to 85 is known as the dark night of the soul. Blake Snyder's words. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. This is underworld stuff. Dark night of the soul, because the soul is what's troubling us. And because of the circumstances of whoever's writing the script for us, we're in that place, the dark night of the soul. We feel like we have no hope. And then, somehow, what can only be called the breach of the fourth wall, all the stories break down. All the stories break down. In fact, the whole room, number 13 in the El Portal Motel, collapses. All four walls fall outward. Boom. Into the parking lot. Into the back wall where the back fence is and the weeds and the bougainvillea flowers. Crash. And it's just a deep night. A few sirens in the distance and a TV with white snow on it. The stories have been breached and we're here just in the moment now. Just this. So, about that moment, it's really important, right? I mean, I know it's a cliche. You here now, right? Be in the moment. It's the only thing that's real. The only thing that's real. I mean, even the physicists say it. John Stuart Bell, great physicist from the 50s, 60s, 70s, Irish guy. He said, the future and the past do not exist. said all we have are records of the past. We have film, we have little iron particles on a floppy disk, we have words written on paper, we have our memories, we're just some kind of configuration of molecules or something like that. But those records exist now. They prove nothing. Those records are only in this moment. And in this moment is all we have. And when our stories stop, that's where we are. Another physicist, one of my favorites, Julian Barber, I think. He said there is no time, there's only static points in a universe, and consciousness moves from one to the next, thinking that there's motion and activity and progress. He even says that the memories that we experience are encoded into those moments as our consciousness, whatever that is, goes from moment to moment. I mean, it's really incomprehensible. These guys are working from, they're not just like making this shit up. It's science, right? Like, remember, you know, the guy in Breaking Bad. Science! Yo, Mr. White! Yeah, so a moment. Very important. So the moment that we're at, in the script, maybe in real life, could be, okay, indulge me, I'll bring up one more scientist, a guy named Ilya Prigogine. This is a Russian chemist, actually won the Nobel Prize in chemistry. He came up with this idea. He was a great pioneer in chaos science. He wrote a really interesting book called Order Out of Chaos. And in it he talks about systems, any kind of system, like bacteria growing in a petri dish, or a pot of boiling water, or a city traffic management system, or you know, whatever. A whole culture could be looked at as a system. Energy in, something happens, energy out, you know, that's the way it works. But he says, posit a system where the energy inputs get so strong, so much, somebody's opening the valve, right? Opening the valve. And it gets to the point where the system can't handle it. Too much energy. We probably all felt that in an emotional way, right? Too much energy, I can't handle it. So he called, what we're coming to is the bifurcation point, where at this point, either the system breaks down into chaos, or the other choice is it goes into a higher level of order that was not predicted or even seen, that can handle the new huge amounts of energy. Which is pretty interesting, right, in and of itself. Well, where Prigogine goes with this is that he says, at that bifurcation point, the smallest of inputs can decide whether it goes this way or that way. The smallest of inputs. Which is really bad news for us. What it means, to me, is that everything we do matters. I mean, if you're rude to a waitress, that could like end the world. You give the finger to somebody when you're driving, that could be the thing that puts us onto option one, total chaos, absolute breakdown. Or if you're sweet to somebody, that takes us this way, into a new higher level of order. So I mean, that's really bad news for us, right? I mean, who wants to know that their actions have that much import? It's a burden, right? Who wants that? But it might be the case. It might be inescapable. It may be what we've been given, is that it's up to each of us. And that and the thing is, we never know when that bifurcation point is coming. There's no way to predict it. All we know is that energy is coming in and things are getting crazier, right? We got more information, we got opinions like crazy. Facebook is just like a manufacturer of toxic opinions. Data, natural gas, coal, everything's too much. So we're getting close to a bifurcation point, but we don't know when it could be. It could be like in 5 minutes, or it could be in 20 years. No way to tell. So really, I mean, again, I'm sorry about this. We have to be on our best behavior all the time. Which is a drag, right? I mean, it's one thing if you know, it's like we're bad, you know, okay, I take a slightly worse rebirth next time around. All right, fine. I don't want to be, you know, prick about it. But. So We are still in room 13 at the El Portal, but we've survived somehow. The sun is starting to come up in the east. The birds are singing. The sun touches the bougainvillea flowers in the alley where the wall fell down. It's really pretty. You know, all the drunks and drug addicts and everything, they're either passed out or dead, so it's really calm and quiet. The police have gone home, turned their sirens off. And you go to the front desk, the El Portal, check in. Say, you know, something happened with my walls. And there's a really nice guy behind the counter. You say, you know, I'll check. And he goes, well, I'll check on it. Yeah, look at that face. But in the meantime, he was like one of those people who wants to talk to you about his religion. And but he was like so interesting. He said, I am newly an adherent. He's a recent immigrant to this country. He said, I am an adherent of a new religion. I just wanted to just take 5 minutes of your time to tell you about it. And I didn't care, so he said, sure. And he said, well, it's something I'm not sure if you've heard of before. It's called Bob Rossivism. And it's based on America's greatest spiritual teacher, Bob Ross. The painter. With wonderfully soothing voices. And the thing about, I would just give you the short version, he says to me, about Bob Rossivism, is that Bob Ross gave us the tools to make a happy universe. We got the brushes, we got the ochre, we got the red lake, we got the ultramarine blue, we got the white and black, we got canvases, and he's taught us how to make happy rocks, and happy trees, and happy rivers flowing into the happy seas, and happy mountains, and happy skies, and clouds, everything. The whole happy world, he's given us the tools how to make that. And then this man behind the counter says, but what is missing from this world? And I said, well, you got me, I've had a hard night, and I'm really thinking too straight. And he goes, well, it's happy people. The genius of Bob Rossivism is he's giving you a happy universe, and you need to provide the happy people. You are the happy people. We are the happy people. We fill up that universe. And I said, I like that, I said. I like that a lot. And he's very pleased at my response. And so he said, well, you have a TV in the waiting room of the hotel here, and they got some old Bob Ross videos, and if you want to sit down and watch one, I'll give you a complimentary cup of coffee. And I say, sure, I'll take the coffee. And he got the powdered coffee creamer. And but he turns on the TV, and there's Bob Ross. I love the guy, right? Wonderful, that voice he's got. Paintings like, you know, no mistakes. Just happy accidents. But today, in the show that Bob Ross is on, the TV show, it's not about painting. In fact, he puts down his brushes and he turns to the camera, like he hardly ever does. Speaking directly to us, Bob Ross. And he says, there was a guy. He was a community college professor, wore a striped sweater, single guy, in a grocery store outside of Atlanta, Georgia, looking for his dinner. And he's thinking about seafood at night. So he's leaning over the case where all the frozen seafood is, Bob Ross tells me. And he's trying to, you know, he's not like a decisive guy. You know, some guys just come on, I'm taking sea bass, you know, but he's thinking about it. He wants to be inspired. He's just looking in the case, thinking, you know, okay, what's going to inspire me? And then something moves in the back of the case. And up out of all the frozen seafood pops a big halibut. It's previously frozen halibut. A shocking experience for both of them. And their eyes lock. You know, the halibut's eyes are both on the same side of the head, so it works. And the halibut and the guy's just like, what? They're both just like shocked. Who are you? And, you know, it takes them a while to get over that shock. And the halibut's the first one to recover, actually. And the halibut goes, hey, boy, can't do it because its fins are all dead. But, you know, it's like more like this. Hey, buddy, where am I? How did I get here? What is this place? Now, most of us would just, Halibut starts asking us questions like that, we're just going to turn away to our shopping cart and move away with all deliberate speed. It just never happened, right? But this guy, he's a nice guy, he doesn't want to be rude, and just, you can't really walk away from somebody without. So he tries to answer. Well, you're in a Piggly Wiggly grocery store just outside of Atlanta, Georgia. And the halibut, you can almost hear the halibut sigh, like, that is like, that doesn't really help me all that much. I don't know what any of that means. And the guy goes, okay, well, I'm in for it now, because I'm stuck, but it's like, okay, how did the halibut? So he goes through the whole story. You were probably just swimming around in the Gulf of Alaska, but like 10 days ago, just minding your own goddamn business, not harming a soul in the world, just minding your own business. And this guy's like the kind of person that takes the point of view, whoever he's talking about. He's already on the fish's side. Just minding your own business. Maybe just lying on that white sand in the North Atlantic or Alaska thing, whatever it is. Just looking up at the sky, minding your own business. Doing a day without doing anything at all. And then Steve, the fisherman, comes up with his fucking boat and his nets and his hooks and stuff. And he catches you and the rest of your family and friends and everybody. You're loaded into the boat and you're frozen and you're taken into the town and the port, taken to a processing center, and they both wince when he says that. I'm like, oh God, I wish I hadn't said that. Processing center. Oh. And the halibut goes, oh yeah, go on. I know this is going to be a horror story. He goes, okay, well then. And then he describes the whole transportation chain, like from Seattle or Valdez or wherever it was, and he's like packed up and then trucked or put in the ship, freezers. He's got to try to explain air conditioning and freezers and stuff, and Freon and the ozone hole. It's just like, it's really complicated. And the fish is like, well, I'm not quite getting it. It's like, fine. It's like after, and it's like, okay, you're putting a big airplane that's frozen, with frozen food, and it's like, what's an airplane? It's like a bird that's made out of aluminum. It's like, what is a bird? What's aluminum? It's just like, I got to get home and make some dinner, right? But he cuts it short, cuts some corners, and finally gets so you're brought to the back of this grocery store, and you're separated from your friends and family for the last time, and you're put on a piece of blue styrofoam and wrapped in plastic, and he's like really got the point of view of the halibut now, and he realizes how cruel and heartless it is that they put the weight and the price on the package. Feels bad about it. And the fish just like, oh yeah, okay. There's a moment of silence, and the halibut says, well, what happens then? The guy really knows he's in for it now. Like, he feels guilty for being a human and eating anything at all. Well, this is a grocery store, and people like me, we come here and he just decides to go through it as quickly as he can, just like ripping the scab off. And it's like, we come here and we buy food, we take it home and cook it, or we cut it up into little tiny pieces and then we eat it. And it's just like a really poignant moment. The halibut just says, well, I guess I asked for it. And it's just like, they're really sad, and it's a powerful moment. And then the halibut finally says, well, listen, you've been super helpful to answer my questions. I know it's really awkward and difficult for you, and I'm glad I know what's going on, even though it's not very good. It's good to know, it's interesting. I'm not sure what it is, but anyway, I'm not like these other jokers. They're still frozen, they don't know anything. Dummies. But I want to ask you one last favor. Would you, do what you said before? And the guy knows exactly what he's talking about, right? And he knows he can't get out of it, but he says, well, I was really thinking of the trout. All right, okay, I'll do it, yeah. And they both breathe a sigh of relief. And the halibut says, well, I thank you, because, otherwise just some stranger would just come here and toss me in his cart without even, a nod. No acknowledgement at all, just take me home and eat me. At least we bonded. We chatted, we become friends of the sort. So the guy takes the halibut out of the cart, puts it gently in his cart, and he says, well, I gotta go to the produce section to get some green beans. And the fish goes, what's produce? And they both have the same reaction, which is like, no, no. And the fish goes, no, forget about it. I already know everything I need to know, that's for sure. Let's just, why don't we just call it now? Like we'll just say thank you and goodbye. And the fish goes, really heartfelt. Thank you. I mean, this is not a great ending for me, but it really means a lot that we had this together. It's very, very good. I'm not kidding. And the guy says it feels the same. It's like, I don't know why, but I feel very touched and I feel like I've learned something. I don't know what it is, but I feel more depth or something. And I thank you for it. And they both, okay, that's it. Goodbye. No, that's a tough one. He pushes the cart and he goes and gets green beans and checks out, puts the food in the car, drives home to his second-story apartment, puts some rice on in the rice cooker on the counter, and he puts his favorite best bottle of white wine in the fridge. A little while later, gets the green beans going, slivered almonds, and then he cooks the halibut. Nice piece of fish. Butter, white wine, lemon, salt and pepper, really simple. Out on the deck, he's put a tablecloth on the table, lit a candle. Usually he doesn't do that. He brings the dinner and the glass of wine out to the table, and just as he's sitting down, a couple of birds fly overhead. And he suddenly just has this realization that he never had in his whole life. Those birds are happy. They're just doing what they do. It's just kind of magnificent. He never really thought about it. It's just like those birds are just flying around being birds, and they're happy doing it. How wonderful. And as he sits down, the dog, a couple of doors down, which he usually annoys the hell out of him, and his dog starts barking. And then another dog, about 5 houses down, barks in return. And they're just going at it, right? But this time he hears it like, that's just what those dogs love to do. They just love to bark at each other and be dogs. They're happy. And he thinks, that's so fantastic. And then the sun is setting over the piney woods to the west, and he sits down and he has a sip of his wine. It's his best white wine. And then he eats his dinner. And it was the best dinner he ever had. Ever, ever, ever. Really good. And it changed him somehow. I mean, I was going to use the word bruised, but that's too harsh. It's more like it tenderized it. Tenderized it. It's like he's been rolled, really, like something very heavy rolled over him. It didn't quite crush him, but it tenderized him. He sees things differently, and more importantly, feels things differently now. In ways that he's not sure he can understand or even explain to himself. He just feels different and softer. And I think it was about 2 weeks later, he had a dream. This community college professor. In this dream, he was in a chamber, way, 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 way underground. And he's standing in front of a window, and he sees a huge white fish. And he thinks, maybe there's some connection. I don't know if there is or not. There might be, but that's all I got for tonight. Thank you very much. Thank you. I was thinking of making a real dramatic exit, but it's I don't know how long we can stay here. But if anybody has a question, I'll take. Right? Good. All right, let's go. Thank you all very much for helping me through this first try at this human project.
Dad, question. Would you tell us about this big painting?
That's a big painting right there.